What's up, guys? Hey, this is Cody from Secure Agent Mentor and SecureAgentMentor.com. And this is another podcast audio episode of Six Figure Focus, where we put a focus on making six figures and elevating your game and helping you improve on a daily basis. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Always remember to subscribe because we have got a lot of neat things in the work. We have a brand new training website that is being built as we speak. Should be released next month. We're excited about that. We've also got some other good things in the work. We're going to be adding some coaching sessions, some new agent training classes, some webinars, potentially some live shows next year. We've got a lot of things in the works that you're going to want to be a part of and that you're going to want to track. This podcast is just something I felt led to start, and we here at Secure Agent Mentor felt led to start because, my first year I was able to make six figures, and I know that it's possible. We've got agents that have made six figures. We've got agents that are on track to make six figures, and we want to help other agents make six figures. Because when I talk to agents all the time, they say, hey, my goal, I always ask them, hey, what's your goal? What do you want to do? A lot of them, about half or more will say, hey, I want to make six figures. How do I make six figures? I've got an agent right now that is doing extremely well. His goal is to make six figures. So we put a focus on it. And so to put a focus on it, this episode is called Tracking Your Sales Activity. It's all about tracking your sales activity. Something I've talked a little bit about before. I want to dive in a little more in depth. Obviously, we always go 10 to 15 to 20 minutes on a specific subject that maybe you haven't thought of, maybe you don't put a lot of maybe you hadn't done, or maybe it's something that you used to do but got away from and just forgot to continually do it. So again, this is something we're gonna talk about, is that we always track 4 different things with all of our agents, and we actually track a couple of other things as well, but these are the four key things that I always tracked even back when I was a brand new agent. I would always put these on a whiteboard. I would put an entire month on a whiteboard, and I would write down, I would actually put a cross in each box for each day, and I would put these 4 different things on the top left, top right, bottom left, and bottom right of that cross in that specific day. And I did that every day, the entire month, and that was the way I tracked my sales activity. And what's funny is you will learn, and I'll get into the actual specifics of things you tracked, but you'll learn, hey, I can see that for some reason I make a sale every single Thursday, but I'm not making one on Tuesday. And so you'll start to actually learn what days you do best on. Maybe you have a different routine that day. Maybe you have different habits that day. Maybe you always set more appointments that day. Maybe that's more of a focal point of a day, but maybe we can see that that's a focal point, but maybe we can then start to channel our energy and our efforts to also help the other day that we're seeing a lack of activity on. And so by tracking your sales activity and by being able to visually see it, not only will you put up more numbers because you are visually and mentally focused or more aware of what's going on and what you're doing, but you know what? You will start to see your numbers improve. If you don't track your activity at all, you'll have some good months, but you're able to be more consistent. And that's the most important part of tracking your sales activity, is you're able to be more consistent day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, quarter in, quarter out, and year in and year out by tracking your sales activity on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And so the activities that we track, first off, we track our contacts. We track the amount of contacts we make on a daily basis. What do I mean by contacts? Contacts is dials, calls, door knocks. We track those things and we count those as contacts. And we track our contacts on a daily and a weekly basis. When we meet every Friday at 8 a.m. in the morning with all of our local agents and any other agents that want to join, one of the things we track and that we talk through is contacts. How many contacts did you have? Because it's funny. An agent will come in and they'll have 400 contacts, 500 contacts, 600 contacts, and they'll have a remarkable week, awesome week, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 of commission. The next week they'll come in and they'll have 100 contacts, 50 contacts, 150 contacts, 200 contacts, 220 contacts, and they'll look at and they'll say, Cody, I don't know what happened this week. It just didn't feel like as good of a week. For some reason, I was not as successful this week. And I'll say, well, let's look at your contacts. The weeks that you do really well, you average about 400 contacts a week, just for example. Every agent's different. Well, you only had 200 contacts this week. Well, you only had about half the commission as normal, so if you would have doubled your contacts, you would have probably doubled your commission. It's funny how that works, but generally you can start to see a theme that those are the things that generally do happen. And so again, you can be more conscious and aware of what you're doing great and what you're not doing well enough and what you could have done better to have had a better week. The second thing that we track is the appointments ran. Now, I want the agents to be conscious of the appointments, how many appointments they set, because I've got one agent right now, he sets about 12 a week, but he only runs about 5 to 7. So for whatever reason, we've been talking through this, but for whatever reason, he's setting a lot of appointments, but they aren't all sticking. He's getting some no-shows, some cancellations, people are changing their mind, whatever the case is. But you want to keep track of how many appointments you run. Because a lot of agents, back when I was in the business, I knew if I ran 10 appointments, if I sat down and actually physically ran 10, not set, but ran 10, I would have $2,000 of commission every single week, just like clockwork, no questions asked. At least some weeks, yeah, we're going to have the occasional bad week, but our average is always going to be more than 2,000 if we're doing those, if we're running that many. Well, I was doing that as a captive agent back 6-7 years ago at a 35% commission rate. So now I know if I run 10 appointments, 2,000 is no problem. I'm probably going to be closer to 4,000 or 5,000. So also, we have some agents that, they say they become aware of how many appointments they run. They say, well, you know what, Cody, the weeks I do really well. I run 6 to 8. This week I only ran 3. Why didn't I do as well? Well, probably didn't make as many contacts, which probably means you didn't make as many appointments or run as many appointments. If you don't run as many appointments, you have a less chance of making as many sales. So if you think through and become aware and think through, okay, I didn't have as many appointments that day, that could have been better, what did I do wrong there? Or what could I improve there? Well, if you would have ran more appointments, everything else will fall into place because, again, this is a numbers game, and to be consistent, the numbers need to be there consistently. The third thing is that we track is the amount of sales. The amount of sales that we make every single week. The one reason we do that is, again, we want to be conscious and aware of how many sales we're making and what our closing ratio or our closing percentage is. Some weeks we'll have closing percentages as high as 90%. Other weeks it'll be as low as 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%, which is low. Anything under half is low. Well, the agent can say, well, you know what? Maybe they can realize, hey, I stayed up later those days or this week, or I didn't get to bed as early, or I didn't work out, or I just didn't feel as good, or I ate worse, or you know what? Because all those things impact how well we do. Something I've become conscious of lately better is getting 8 hours and exercising on a daily basis. And you can see those things start to affect your sales and your skills and your ability. So when we talk about sales, if we're running enough appointments, the sales will be there. But we also want to think through sales because sometimes we can run a lot of appointments, but they may not be quality appointments. Maybe we'll run 10 appointments, but maybe they're just garbage. It's just a bunch of cold call appointments. They don't know why we're coming. We don't know what we're selling, and our closing percentage can be much lower. And so then we can see, okay, maybe our appointments were not up to the quality to our standards. Maybe they weren't quality enough for what we wanted to do. So we always like to track our closing ratio. Also, you can tell by the quality of your appointments when you track your sales and how many sales you make. And obviously sales will differ. Your closing percentage may be higher when you're turning 65 rather than a final expense lead. It just varies. But that's something you can also track and figure out, hey, I have a higher closing percentage here. Where is it easier to get appointments? And so that's another thing we track. The fourth thing we track, again, that's contacts, appointments ran, and sales. That was the first 3. The fourth thing that we track is commission. We want to know how much commission we are submitting each week because that's how we get paid. Yes, the other things is what drives the commission, but commission is still how we get paid. And so we start to think through, okay, I had several sales. Well, maybe my average commission was much lower. Maybe my quality of appointments was lower. Maybe the clientele was a lower income and just the policies were very small on what they could afford, you never know what actually happens. But again, by tracking commission, you can see on average, a lot of agents will say, okay, if I run 5 appointments, I'm generally on average going to submit about about $1,200 to $1,500. Well, if they say, well, 1 week I run 3, they're going to see they're going to write about 6 to 100 to 1,000. So you can think through how many appointments I ran, how much commission I ran, and you can actually, what's nice about the numbers game and the math of sales and the math of the insurance industry is you can start to see, okay, I made $2,000 in commission, okay, and I made 5 sales, and I ran 10 appointments. So that was $400 per sale. That was $200 per appointment. And then say I made 200 contacts, then you can break it down that, hey, I made, so much money per contact. You can actually start to look at the math of all of it. And you can start to track everything, even down to how much money you make per dial. And so if you track the math, you're able to be more consistent, you're able to be a better you, and you're able to see yourself improve on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. So again, this is Tracking Your Sales Activity. This is Cody with Secure Agent Mentor and SecureAgentMentor.com. Thanks so much for listening. Please